Hi everyone, my name is Scott Bono and welcome to the channel. In today's episode we have something really special, something I've been teasing on and off for a while now. We have a very special recreating episode today. Today we are recreating Basket Case by Green Day featuring Mary Spender on vocals. I've been waiting to share this with you all for a while now, and things are finally done and dusted. I am much better at starting projects than I am at finishing them, but really excited to have this one done and out into the world. We recorded a super fun and cool music video for the song. It's featured over on Mary's channel, and I'll put a link to that down below. And this video is a conversation that Mary and I had about a whole bunch of things, from what it's like to be a musician in the 21st century, the role that technology has played in creating more accessibility for folks trying to get involved in music. And then we also went through a discussion of the process that I went through taking her vocal and getting it ready to be inserted into the finished track. Without any further ado, let's get into the conversation with Mary. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining in today. I have a very special guest this afternoon, and that is the one and only Mary Spender. Mary, thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We connected a while ago and we're talking a little bit about some of this sort of recreating work that I have been doing. You had very graciously agreed to participate, and we talked a little bit about some songs that might make sense. And I'm in the middle of this sort of Green Day project, and the idea of having you do Basket Case came up. So I'm curious about sort of what your thoughts were as you went through, this version, which obviously you've done a ton of covers, on your channel, both by yourself and in collaborations with others. But a lot of times they've really been in a stylized version, taking sort of your approach to it. What was it like going through and trying to be a little bit more focused on more of a facsimile of what the actual record was?
It was very, very interesting, and I just basically wanted to inflict my presence upon your project when you told me about the idea. So it was really fun to be a part of, and just thanks for letting me lend my vocals to it, because obviously I ruin it when it comes to actually sounding like Green Day, because suddenly you have a female voice on there. But I did my best.
Well, I think it sounded amazing. And the difficult part of these recreations is going to always be the vocals, right? If I'm doing these on my own, I don't sound like Lane Staley or Kurt Cobain or Chris Cornell, and nobody sounds like Billy Joe Armstrong. But I think sort of trying to capture the essence of what they were doing in that moment and find a way to recreate that is really what I'm trying to do. One of the things that I have been the most interested in what I've done over the course of the last year or so on this channel is help people who are, bedroom musicians who are learning how to do these kind of things, realize how approachable it really is. You can go off with a MacBook and, a couple $100 audio interface, and record stuff that sounds really good. And, I know that a lot of what you've been focusing on over the last several years of your career is helping, musicians think about ways that they can be a musician in the 21st century, which is a really different thing from the past. So we'd sort of love to get your thoughts on that side of things.
Well, and to your credit, like, we've been talking for almost 2 years. So I feel a bit of a closeness because you've sent me other projects finished and asked for my opinion on them and just given you little bits of feedback here and there. So yeah, when it comes to this sort of thing, these guys have unlimited record label budgets, especially Green Day back in that era. I don't know any details, but I imagine it was probably more than I've ever had to spend. Well, that's not hard.
I remember the very first record that I made was back in 1996, I think. Me and my friends saved summer work money all summer long to go get into the recording studio for 12 hours. And then we tried to bang out 7 songs in 12 hours. And that was what you had. And what you had at the end of that period of time was all that you had. Obviously, it's a lot more accessible now, but it can also be overwhelming because you have to think about what songs are you going to write, and how are you going to play them, and how are you going to make sure it sounds good going in, and then how are you going to make sure it sounds good, coming out.
It is overwhelming in one way because people are doing incredible things with just their laptop, and they're making music, and people are producing unbelievable stuff on very entry level equipment, which is exactly what it's there for. I think the key is limitation in everything you do, and you're giving yourself a limitation. You have to try and recreate what that one song is. You're not trying to recreate every song. You're just focusing in, and I think that's exactly why I did Songbook, because it was actually about taking away the production element from my music, which sometimes I find overwhelming. Like the idea of not just having like a full band in the studio, which I would love to do, but trying to make sure that I can just have a higher output, and so make things finished quicker, and everything else sort of slows me down. So that was just my limitation for the Songbook thing. I just think it's really exciting about where technology's gone now, that the fact that just at home with the stuff that's available to everyone, you can recreate a song that would have cost hundreds of thousands way back, or the album would have cost hundreds of thousands. And as we've spoken about just earlier, the idea that some songs are basically just all about their production is kind of heartbreaking in one way, but then also it shows that there's this whole new element to songwriting where you don't actually have to rely on the song being a thing. You can make something through the production and still make it listenable, which is still has plenty of value. The value of you doing this and then educating me, and me having watched some of your videos already, probably all of them by now, it's just interesting to see where you go and why you think the way you do.
On some level, I kind of think a lot of the stuff that folks like yourself, Rick Beato, Rhett Shull, there's I think a very complementary nature to a lot of these things, because I love the idea that just from watching a few people on YouTube who have made a career out of various aspects of that process, you can really learn everything from how do you think about songwriting? How do you think about, like some of the coursework that you've put out there in your YouTube videos about your process for writing songs. And then not just writing those songs, but some of the work that you've done more recently, like with Songbook. How do you take that nugget about how you write songs and turn it into tangible work product? Like, that's really amazing. You look at somebody like Rhett, who talks a ton about how do you realize the sound that you want out of the gear that you have and the way that you think about recording it. You look at Rick, and he talks a ton about like, what is it about the way that these songs were written and produced that make them great? And then, selfishly in my own small way, what I'm trying to do is kind of get the very end of that puzzle. Like, all right, if I know what impact I want my music to have, how do I go from that to a finished product that feels like the kinds of things that you grew up listening to, or the stuff that had the most impact on you? And it's such an amazing time, I think, to be a musician in that way. And it's just exciting to be able to put some stuff out there that, maybe might resonate with people on that front.
Everything now, it's just leveled the playing field, but that does mean that you have to sort of not get overwhelmed, find your limitation, and then literally stick to it, so that people can't ask questions. Because if you give people the option to ask a question, they'll find something to critique about it, maybe. So like if I went into Songbook and said, do people actually want an acoustic album? They'd probably be like, no, we want your full band album, whatever. But there's no choice. The Songbook project is just me and an acoustic guitar, live to click track, one take each song. That's all that is. And I don't have to explain around it. And then when I go into the studio and do a full production, there'll be, there's a saying, no, never apologize, never explain, just commit. And with this, it is out of my wheelhouse. But that doesn't mean to say that I didn't enjoy it. And then I also learned from it too. But now I'm going to ask you the question, going through. So if we just focused on my vocal chain, of how you made my vocals, which I just recorded using an SM7, and take them to fit into the rest of the song when the rest of the song is kind of based on Green Day, and my vocals are obviously the little thing that's different. How did you manage to level it out?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the vocals are sort of a good microcosm of the entire process. So I think it's good to start with that. And why don't we dig in, just a little bit to what the song sounds like and how your vocals come in. And I'm going to play this just right from the very top of the song, and just to get an idea, because at the top of the song, it's really just the vocal and one guitar. And we can sort of break down how did it sound coming in, and then what did we do to get it to sound really full and present in the mix. So here is the very top of the song with just your vocal and the intro guitar for just a few seconds here.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it.
All right, so my harmony vocal is also ducked in there just a little bit as well. If we go and listen to the vocal just by itself, so I'm going to strip away, let's go strip away literally all of the processing. So we're gonna, sorry, we're gonna expose you here, but don't despair.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine?
And actually, that has some of the
reverb.
Oh yeah, sorry, I stripped stuff out of the wrong channel. Let's do that.
No, I thought you were being kind to me.
No,
then.
sorry, we're gonna be very unkind. So this right here is actually just the one track of your vocal. So let's take a listen to that.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine?
So obviously a very different feel from what we heard in the finished product, but great bones, because that's the only vocal track. That one track is the only thing in there aside from the little accent vocals that I added. So let's kind of walk through a little bit about what do we do to build that up and make it sit front in the mix, right? So on a song like this, it's a pop punk song. The vocals are very present, but there's also a lot that's happening, sort of more broadly in the mix. So one of the things that I do right off of the bat here is take your vocal track, and then we are going to essentially duplicate it twice and run it through some saturation to give it a little bit more thickness and fullness. And those are sort of buried in the mix so that you don't notice them for what they are, but if I take them away, you're definitely going to hear them, right? So I'll play the first part of this with just your vocal, and then I'll play the second phrase with the saturation in, so you can get a sense for the difference.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once?
So in that last little part there, you can hear it thickens up, a fair bit just by itself, just by doing those two things there. So the next couple of things that we do are really around crafting the overall sort of level and early tonality. So a little bit of EQ. And then one of the things that I do is actually do some pretty aggressive limiting. So what I'll do is I'll take a limiter in there and say, like, all right, I want to cut 3 to 5 dB out of the very high end of the mix. So take a limiter, crank it all the way up until it's limiting about 5 dB at the peak, and then drop the output by whatever I juiced it by. So you crank it up to cause it to limit, and then pull the volume down so that the overall volume is still where it started, but we just don't have crazy peaks. Right. And that's actually really helpful, because that way your compressor has to do a lot less work, and you have to do a lot less sort of automation on what's going on there. So then we go basically to what the overall chain is going to be here. And I'm a sucker for analog style channel strips. So using a Neve 1073 style preamp is just like it's magic, basically. It's just magic. It sounds amazing. And then a little bit of EQ just to make sure that we're largely sort of pulling out resonances and things like that. And then that sounds a little bit like this.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once?
And then just really quickly, so you can hear that with the guitar in there to get a sense for how it's sort of sitting in the mix for now.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once?
So now we're starting to get there. We're starting to get somewhere, but it's definitely still you. We haven't changed the fundamental tone or, tenor of the voice or anything like that. We're just making it sort of like appropriately full for an all-out sort of pop punk, kind of a song.
Absolutely.
From where we are right now, I'm curious, as you think about the kind of way that you sort of process the vocals on the tracks that you're doing, are there any things in here that you're noticing that are sort of like, different from the approaches that you take you do a lot of sort of, acoustic singer-songwriter stuff that's obviously got a very different sort of overall vibe to it. But this sort of feels to me like it still sounds like you, but it's not.
It does sound like me. It definitely fits this genre of music, which I feel like slightly heavier stuff is in my future. And I've dabbled with some of that in the past. But yeah, I mean, I would be really intrigued just to see myself sort of test around with this chain. I like the idea of the thought process and each level and where to take it to match everything else in the track. It's cool. And then giving it that sort of je ne sais quoi with the analog sparkle, as it were. Although it's technically not analog. Is it the UAD?
It's UAD, so it's analog model. So,
but I mean, they do it best. Like, it's absolutely insane. And like Capitol Chambers, I'll probably never ever record in the Capitol Chambers. But is that my favorite reverb? Absolutely. Yeah. So
that's again the beauty of this is such an accessible thing, compared to where we may have been before. So then when we look at sort of the time-based effects, there's actually quite a bit that's going on here. So I've got 3 different reverbs that are happening. One with sort of a short, sort of small room reverb tail, one with a little bit of more of a medium tail, and then one that's really like a big sort of open chamber. So we've got these 3 reverbs in here. And actually, let me take this from just a little bit further on.
I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it.
So giving a little bit more sort of ambience, but if you tuck the guitar in there, you kind of lose a little bit of the reverb can sound a little overwhelming, I think, in that situation. But if you put the guitar in.
I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it.
It doesn't sound overwhelming, right? It just sounds a little fuller, a little bit more presence. It's not getting overwhelmed by that guitar, which is also sitting more or less right up the middle.
That's really interesting.
And then the last thing that we have is there's 2 different delays that I've got in here. And one is a slap back. It just gives it a little bit more, immediate depth. And then the other is a long tail delay. And actually the long tail delay is entirely not present in the intro. So as we head into where the chorus comes in, we actually get both of those delays coming in a little bit more fully. So let's take a listen to that really quickly.
Sometimes I give myself the creeps.
And here's just the vocal.
Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just stoned?
So you can kind of get that, like, there's almost like a little bit of a throw delay. Do you hear that in there?
Yeah. I'm just laughing at myself.
It is weird to listen to an isolated vocal. But one of the things that's also happening there is we transition in that spot from that intro guitar to the full-on guitar thing. And the way that was recorded actually is the intro guitar is one guitar kind of played right up the middle with a really, really overdriven tonality to it. When the chorus guitars come in, it's actually 6 guitar parts that are essentially hard panned left and right, providing a bunch of different layering. And a cool thing that happens there is the vocals are not really competing in the mix with the guitars at all, because you've got all of that guitar sort of like mid-range frequency stuff hanging out over here, and the vocals are right in the middle. So that gives us more freedom to do some more time-based effects and a little bit more sort of spatial things going on with the vocals. So that sounds like this.
It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just stoned?
Hell yeah. Well, thank you for running me through that. I feel like I've learned quite a lot too.
Thank you so much for, taking the time to, record the vocal. And it is kind of cool and wild that we live in a world right now where, you can be over in Europe and I'm here in Austin, Texas, and we can still collaborate on something like this. And, the outside observer would probably never know that we weren't all in the same room when this stuff got tracked. And I wanted to say, thank you for your whole approach on YouTube is really about giving people access to, essentially access to opportunity and helping people understand that these kinds of things, they're within reach. The tools are there, the accessibility is there. And, for my small part of it, even just getting started and sort of my YouTube journey, I really kind of want to continue that tradition. And I'm trying to sort of fill what I perceive as like maybe a little gap or opportunity in the ecosystem of, all of those of you who have spent the last 5, 8, 10 years, sort of opening up the doors. So.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. And all I can say is like, we all start from exactly the same point. We all start from zero. I'm really excited to see where this takes you. And we've spoken about it, and you do fill a gap because I haven't seen anyone do something exactly like this. And even if someone does do the same sort of thing, just like there are many singer-songwriters on YouTube, it's still your voice. It's still your song choice. There are so many things that you can still bring to the table. And that's the beauty with every idea you have on YouTube. Even if someone's already done it, they haven't done it from your perspective, from your education as a musician, whether self-taught or whether, through an institution or whatever. So yeah, so I'm just excited for you to kind of really begin this journey, because I know you've been working on these videos over the last year, but, I think people will be watching avidly. So it's nice to be part of it.
And I appreciate it. Yeah, and one of the things that I do hope to do is show folks that you don't necessarily have to have had a formal music education, or you don't have to have 40 hours a week that you can dedicate to this stuff to learn, to grow, to try new things, and have an impact on some people. There was something that in one of your early videos that really resonated with me, which was, if you're in a world where you have 100 subscribers, or you get 200 views on a video, like that's a great club show, right? It's hard to get 200 people to show up in a place, to see something. And, in a world where there are people out there who have millions of subscribers and, millions of views, that can feel very daunting. But I want people to feel like, you can learn this stuff. Literally everything that I know about producing music, I learned from YouTube. Literally everything. So, in as much as anything that I do sounds good in the least, it's not for any other reason than there's content available on YouTube and tools available that can help you, get there if you're interested. And, hopefully that's kind of thing that will resonate with people out there. So thank you again so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate it. And, I'll encourage everybody, if you haven't checked out Mary's channel, it's absolutely amazing. Mary is one of the best storytellers out there, whether it comes to, music directly or just the role that music can play, in your life. And so definitely please go and check her channel out if you haven't already.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank Mary one more time for working with me on this project. It was super fun and exciting to get an opportunity to collaborate with you. So thank you so much, Mary. I really appreciate it. For any of you that may have found your way here from Mary's channel, thank you for sticking with the video. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. I've got several other videos on the channel where I walk through trying to do studio faithful recreations of some of my favorite songs. I'll put a link to the playlist down below if you want to check those out. If you enjoyed the video, a like is always appreciated, and if you'd like to see more, please do click that subscribe button. As usual, I've got a bunch of other projects in various states of completion and hope to have those done soon and videos made for them as well. Thanks again for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one.